Whoa, what is up? So I told you guys we had some upgrades. I didn't lie. So we got an intro finally. I know everybody's been wanting it. We don't have that 30-second countdown that's on the black background anymore. The Clean Hits crew, the Clean Hits podcast finally has an intro. I love it. Shout out to the creator, Trent. Please remind me his name.
Oh, that's Adam. Adam Wilkerson did that one for us. Yeah.
So cool. And I think we have a couple others coming soon too. So we may be able to mix and match those, but fun stuff. I love it. It looks sweet. I think we need to play it again as people are trickling in here. But
yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
One more time?
Yeah. Sure.
All right, we're doing it again. The brand new Clean Hits intro. You'll get used to it, but it's fresh. I gotta see it again.
We're running the game now. Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, that should get everybody jacked up.
Yeah. You know what I love the most is there's like a brutal hit going on in the background of the Clean Hits logo.
Yeah,
so it looks like a full Nelson, but
well, I still think it was a clean hit though. I don't think I would have called a penalty on it.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. Every time you ref a game, you got somewhere to be, man. You swallow that whistle every time. I was coaching a game last weekend, and our team was getting smoked, just blown out. It was like, I don't know, 7-2 in the third or something like that. And the other coaches who were up were like yelling at these like 13-year-old referees, 14-year-old referees about penalties my team was committing, like, hey, come on, that's tripping or whatever. And I'm like, buddy, like they're trying to get the rink freed up here. It's 7-2. They're not going to call tripping penalties in the third period. Like, it's jungle rules out there, baby. Anything goes. Like, they're in a hurry. They put those whistles in their pockets 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yep. Incredible. Well, this is the Clean Hits podcast all about Utah Hockey Club / the ex-Arizona Coyotes. Rest in peace. This is episode 5, and what we're going to do today is talk all about the roster, where it sits today. It's probably 95% done. We may see a small tweak here or there, but I think at this point we have a general idea of what this team looks like. We're going to be talking about what those forward lines could look like, the defensive pairing, special teams, kind of go through that whole roster construction. Definitely want to answer some questions. So if you are in the chat, please ask questions you may have. We want to help kind of educate any new fans or even just kind of engage with all the experts that want to sit there being armchair GMs with this roster and kind of figure out the best line combos they can. I am Brad Blakemore, aka Gretzky Brett Betsky. We got Corey, we got Kenny, we got Trent. How's everybody doing? Corey, how are you doing? Are you nice and cool up there in Toronto, Ontario, or?
Yeah, I don't know how much you've seen of the Toronto news down in Arizona, but we basically got flooded out this week. It would not stop raining. So if you can see the train station and everything downtown was, we're not used to this much water, but the benefit of that is it did finally take away the humidity. So now it's just the summer without the stickiness. So enjoying the summer weather for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I saw videos online of like golf courses being totally flooded with water, and like the train station or subway station too, with water pouring down. It was pretty scary. Yeah, we wouldn't know what to do with that out here in Phoenix.
We would just a couple years worth of rain for you guys.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, you should see the way people drive out here when it rains. It's a disaster.
Like they try to dodge raindrops. Like it's unreal. It's like, oh my God, what is this? This guy's leaking.
Kenny, how you doing?
Hey, good, man. I just got back from Goodwill trying to pick up all the Coyotes.
No. Did you get any?
No, I'm messing around. Trying to make a joke because it kind of is a joke. But at the same time, I think it's, I thought about it a little bit. I mean, the optics are bad, but really, I mean, sell them for a discount to the public. That's a way to keep the hope alive. So I saw that. I'm like, we're gonna get butchered online for that. But at the same time, it's like we're already butchered, so I don't know what I'm upset about. So
can't already buried.
Yeah, we still get like I saw the Delta layout. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures online, but someone posted all the pictures of the obstructed seats and whatnot, and someone's like, still better than Mullet Arena. It's like, dude, that horse has been dead and relocated to another state. Like, yeah, you don't have to keep going, but it's, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, and man, if you didn't get to make it to the Mullet, though, you missed out because that was a once-in-a-lifetime experience to see NHL teams there. I think all three of us, everybody, unfortunately, Trent, you weren't there. We're at the last game ever in Arizona.
Corey.
Yeah. I mean, seeing McDavid at that size rink was just unbelievable. But
and Spicy Tuna got the first goal, and the arena went nuts.
It was
kind of
insane.
Sick goal too, right? Wasn't it? If I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were on a beer run, right? You missed it.
Yeah.
I don't think I may not have even been there. I got in at the second period with a last minute ticket. I did manage to get a first round exit chant going towards the Edmonton Oilers in my section, which was fun.
Not exactly. Not exactly a good call.
Later, but oh well. We still took the win. And Trent, how are you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, I actually, in true Trent fashion, I watched that last game at the local rink. One of the kids on my Mites team at the very end made everyone at the bar do a standing ovation along with the people at Mullet. It was the most adorable thing you've ever seen. 8-year-old kids standing on the table, making all these grumpy adults stand up and cheer with them. It was definitely a Disney moment without a Disney ending, unless, of course, you live in Salt Lake. Then it's a Disney beginning, right? Because you get this ready-made young team with an amazing roster ready to roll and an amazing pipeline coming up.
Yeah. And honestly, the way that roster ended is going to be pretty similar to how it's going to begin in Utah. So we will jump right into that. But right before we start breaking down that roster, please give us a subscribe at cleanhits.substack.com. That's where you're going to find all of our articles. We generally get out 4 to 5 or so a week. Some are exclusive for our paid subscribers. Some are for the public. Make sure you get that subscription going soon, though, because we are going to kind of raise those prices a little bit once the season gets going. So now's the best time to jump on that. Or give us a follow at Twitter/X/CleanHitsHockey to find all of our kind of posts being pushed out through Twitter, our comments on news, and we're definitely keeping up with everything that's happening with the Utah Hockey Club on there. So come on, give us a follow, engage with us. We make sure that we reply to just about everybody. We want to just keep on building this community around this awesome team and what Bill Armstrong, the man, is building, because it is truly going to be something special. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. So I think we all want to probably start with the forwards. So really the only main addition to the forward roster was Stenlund from the Florida Panthers. Otherwise, the forward grouping looks pretty much the same. I actually grabbed some of the projected lines from Daily Faceoff, so I'll pop that up on the screen just so we can kind of get a visual of what these lines may look like. Again, this is just what they're expecting. So that top line of Clayton Keller, Barrett Hayton, and Nick Schmaltz, I pretty much guarantee that is what we're going to see on day one. I really don't think they're going to break up this top line. Keller and Schmaltz have pretty incredible chemistry together. If you're a new fan and you haven't seen it, the way they can just shimmy, shuffle all around the ice, they just skate circles around people and set up phenomenal plays when they're doing this. It's something to behold. And Hayton, as we talked about on our episode last week, is really kind of doing the dirty work for them. So if anybody loses the puck, he'll go up to the boards, get it for them, let them do their thing, go right back to the front of the net, distract the goalie, piss off a couple defensemen, and then help just create chaos while Keller and Schmaltz just kind of stir the pot and set up a perfect play. They found a ton of success this way. The team looks very different if one of Schmaltz or Keller is out. We really kind of lose that top scoring line when that happens. Barrett Hayton is more of kind of a supplemental piece there, though. So he was out for almost all of last year and kind of had next man up with Nick Bukestad and even Alex Kerfoot taking that top center line. Now, the big question here, too, is Logan Cooley is kind of the de facto, what we call the number one center as far as our prospect pool goes. But as you can see here, he's still projected to be on that second line. And I do think that is what we're going to see right now. A lot of times in hockey, you don't necessarily have to just load up on the top line. You do often see teams kind of spreading out the skill. So even if you see him on the second line, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is really the second center by any means. He's really still going to be kind of considered our top prospect in the center position right now. And maybe in a year or two, maybe even halfway through the season, you're going to start seeing him playing up there potentially with Schmaltz or Keller, or maybe they'll juggle the lines up a little bit. So again, that top six is looking pretty good. That second line of Lawson Krause, Logan Cooley, and Dylan Guenther were finding a ton of chemistry as well at the end of the season, kind of that last third of the season, really. That's where we really saw Dylan Guenther start to shine. Cooley and Guenther look like they could be a very dangerous pair for a very long time here. They kind of immediately started being able to read each other's plays, the playmaking that Cooley has, his willingness to go to the board, because don't forget, he did spend some time on the fourth line last season, which really kind of let him get those guts to really go and do that dirty work to help make and establish plays. And then Guenther not having to just be that finisher, finally getting that kind of the longer leash to roam around the ice a little bit and do what he does best, which is finding open ice, making plays, and using his lethal shot. And then Lawson Krause over there on the left wing really helping support those two by being kind of that vet presence and that bigger body. So before we kind of break down those bottom two lines as well, what do you think of that construction? Do you think that is what we're probably going to see day one? Or do you think there's room to kind of still play around with these lines? Do you think Hayton stays at the top center position, or Bukestad takes that again? Do you think Krause will be up on that second line, or do you think that is kind of more open for another forward to kind of replace him, because Krause had fantastic chemistry with Michelli early in the season as well, and in the previous season before that. So thoughts on these forward groupings for kind of the top six right now?
Corey, I think you're muted, bud.
There we go. Okay. I think Hayton stays in that top spot until there's a reason to make a change. I think the plan is for Logan Cooley to eventually take that number one center spot, but for now, especially with that chemistry with Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller, there's no real reason to make a change, especially when Logan Cooley has his own chemistry with Dylan Guenther, and you can round out the top six that way. I think Andre Tourney is like a lot of the past Coyotes coaches, where he likes to put pairings together in the top six, and then the third guy just kind of rounds out the line. So you do see that chemistry with Keller and Schmaltz, with Cooley and Guenther came together really quickly. And then, like you said, Michelli and Krause in your top nine. Just looking at the numbers here. So Dylan Guenther got called up in early January. I think it was following the suspension for Jason Zucker. And thinking was that he was only going to be up for the suspension and then he would go back down. But then there was no reason to put him back down, right? He was up for 45 games. He had 35 points, 18 goals. So had he played the full season, I think he would have been the seventh player on the team to hit the 20-goal mark.
Yep.
Logan Cooley as well. 3 goals before Dylan Guenther got called up. After Dylan Guenther got called up, Logan Cooley had 14 goals. And the split on that was 37 games to 45. So a little bit more games toward the back half. But Dylan Guenther really brought out another level in Logan Cooley as well. So I think it's really critical to keep those two together.
Yeah. Did you say it was 18 goals in 42 games or 45? I'm sorry.
For
45.
Guenther.
Yeah, I have 18 and 45. If I wrote that down.
I believe if he were to have kept that goal pace going with a full 82 games, that would be on pace for 32.8 goals, which is pretty crazy. Getting a 30-goal scorer in the NHL is a pretty big piece for roster construction, because that is a weapon that not every single team's going to have. I think the last time we had a 30-goal scorer outside of Keller would have been Verbata.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds right.
2012.
Yep. And then Mike Comrie before there. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, I think with the Cooley and Guenther chemistry, it's an amazing sign of things to come. And especially because I don't know how long term Nick Schmaltz is of a building block piece for this franchise. He's more of a player, I think, that's going to help us with the transition as the team takes a step, rather than a guy who's going to be there when we get to the top of the mountain, right? So I think it's really important that we're seeing the young guns contribute so mightily, especially in that second half of the season. Like Corey said, until January 1st, Cooley had 3 goals. And then after January 1st, he had 17. And I think that speaks in some respects, not only to Cooley's confidence and his ability to shoot the puck and rekindling some of what he had as an amateur, but I think it also does speak a little bit to Dylan Guenther's playmaking ability, which I think is by far the most underrated part of his game. I think as a rookie, he was deployed as just a trigger man, somebody who was going to sit off to the side of the slot near the dot, waiting to get his shot unleashed. And I think that he got pigeonholed that way early on in his NHL career. I think he went down to the minors and showed that he's really a dual threat, just like he had shown in juniors throughout his whole career. And I think we saw glimpses of that with his 18 goals and 17 assists last season, proving that he's truly a dual threat winger. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most looking forward to this season, is watching Guenther's playmaking ability blossom and really show people that there's a lot more to him than an opportunistic sniper. It's a drum I've been beating like crazy since he broke into the league, and everyone wants to look at him like he's, the 40-year-old version of Alex Ovechkin, who's really only good at the one thing. And that's just not the case. He's been an elite dual threat, total offensive player his entire career, and I don't think that's going to stop just because he's in the NHL now.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad, but at the same time so beautiful to watch. Like right around the time that we found out the Coyotes were leaving, Guenther explodes, Cooley explodes, Doan comes up, right, and explodes. Man. So it's just like just a dagger to the heart. But at the same time, Utah fans, you guys have so much to look forward to. Like, I remember the days of the Coyotes where our forward prospects were exciting. We'd have like one that we were really pumped about, and then we would overhype the hell out of the rest of them, just to make this facade that we had some depth. But this team truly does have depth. I mean, we were talking, Corey mentioned it. We have how many 20 goal scorers? Was it
7?
5?
Last
7. Yeah, 7. So that kind of what am I trying to say? That kind of pushes me to my next point, where you look at those lines on there, and we're missing a 20 goal scorer from last year. Michael Carconi is not on those projected lines. And it's kind of nuts to think about. Like, we actually have so much depth that we are potentially shoving a 20 goal scorer off the roster, just due to the fact that there's just too many pieces to choose from. So Trent corrected it. It looks like we had 6 20 goal guys.
He would have been 7 with Guenther though if he had played the whole season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Guenther had 18.
It's kind of bananas that, like, you think about that, like, and it's going to be tough, right? It's probably going to come down to Doan and Carconi realistically battling it out. I think the path of least resistance would be to send Doan back to Tucson and just let him further flourish down there, and give Carconi the shot he deserves, because he was a warrior for us. But it just goes to show you how deep this team actually is, and everybody is. I love the pairs point too. I mean, Keller and Schmaltz, you can put those guys with anybody. We talked about it last episode. Those guys were amazing together with Barrett Hayton. Barrett Hayton goes down, and all of a sudden you throw Nick Bugstad, of all people, up there, and they're still producing an insane clip. So it's going to be really exciting to see what it turns into, for sure.
Yeah, did you guys notice at the Sergachev press conference when they asked him about playing against the Coyotes, and he had said when Tampa was in town, he hated playing against them because there were a bunch of annoying little bugs zipping around that were too hard to squash. And he was talking about that maddening high cycle that Keller and Schmaltz are doing at the top of the circles, with Hayton down in the slot wreaking havoc, and those two just switching off and circling with Dursey was getting in the mix there. And it was just this whole blender of offensive talent at the very top of the offensive zone. The craziest thing to watch. And early in the season, teams didn't really have the book on it yet. They hadn't seen the tape yet, and they were completely frustrated by it. It was really gratifying to hear Sergachev explain that it had really driven him mad as well. And it worked so well. Even though Hayton wasn't putting up points, he was really contributing to that and allowing those two to roam free and have that free-flowing offensive game. And credit to Andre Tierney for letting it happen too. We have never had a coach in the history of this franchise that would have allowed that kind of creativity to flourish under him. So I think that's another thing that Utah fans can really look forward to, is what this is going to look like when Andre Tierney actually has real talent to work with. So I think that's one of the really nice things about the relocation, is it kind of restarts the clock on him a little bit. Coaches don't tend to survive a whole lot of losing in this league. But game one's going to be game one for him. So to me, that's really heartening. The idea that Andre Tierney is going to get kind of a new lease on life a little bit of a fresh start, because I think he's earned it. I think he deserves it. It would be a shame to throw the baby out with the bathwater as we come out of this rebuild. So I'm glad that our coach is going to get another crack at things here.
Well, the amount of shade you just threw at Wayne Gretzky and his head coaching ability was just straight dirty. But
he didn't even show up for practice, man. He flew in for games.
And you know me, my other accounts, Gretzky Betsky, I do the gambling thing. I will be posting some gambling pieces throughout the season, and I'm just looking for right now the award for the top coach, the Jack Adams Award. They have released the odds, and this is a league that loves a good story. Andre Tournier right now is plus 1,700 to win it. I may have to book that in right now, because if this is a team that potentially makes the playoffs, it's a brand new team. The league would love to be able to award Utah maybe some sort of trophy at the end of the year. I don't think we would be in the running for Calder unless Doan has an incredible season. I don't know what other player awards would potentially happen. So I may have to dabble in that before those odds start dropping down.
That's a media vote, right? Does the media vote on Coach of the Year?
Yeah.
And the media loves Tourney, man. He's a great quote. He's a great guy. Everybody who meets him just loves him. So I think that could play a little part too. There's the East Coast bias, which is going to hurt a little bit. But it's not as though they really have to watch the games for the Jack Adams. They kind of go off of results and story and reputation and interaction. So I think the Big Bear, with the nickname and the accents and the amazing aphorisms and turn of phrase that he offers up, despite English being his second language, is going to be really endearing to a lot of that national media. And I think you're right. If his team sneaks in, he's got a really good shot at winning that award.
Yeah, I would agree. So I may place that right now. And before we talk about that bottom six of the forward group, I do want to shout out Mark Allred, who gave us a subscribe on Apple. But the man himself runs an awesome Boston podcast called Black and Gold. So make sure to check that out. He's doing great content for all you Bruin fans out there. But got to give some love back to him since he's showing some appreciation over here. So shout out to him. And again, if you're in the comments, just let us know if you have any questions about the roster as we keep on moving through here. So let me pull up that roster screen again, and let's take a look at this bottom six. So Daily Faceoff again has projections for Matthias Michelli, Nick Bukestad, and Josh Doan on that third line. Then Alex Kerfoot, Jack McBain, and Kevin Stenlund for the fourth line. Now, if you count the centers here, there's four. At least Kerfoot can pivot to center here. So there are tons of quote unquote optionality here of what we can do with these bottom two lines. And as Kenny mentioned, Carcone's not here. That was a 20-goal scorer on this team. And I don't think there's any way he doesn't make the roster. So I think realistically, you are looking at Josh Doan potentially starting the year off in Tucson and the team's farm team, which is in the AHL, the Tucson Roadrunners. Letting him bake down there a little bit, being the number one offensive player down there, probably being able to focus a little bit more on his two-way play while he's down in Tucson. Letting Carcone be on that line with Michelli and Bukestad could be pretty tasty too. And then you have kind of this pure shutdown line that also can net quite a. I mean, the offensive abilities of Jack McBain and Kerfoot are somewhat understated. Jack McBain was really kind of coming out 2 seasons ago near the end of the season. Huge net front presence. Kerfoot has some great playmaking ability. We saw that especially when he had to kind of pop up into the top line when Barrett Hayton was out. This is going to be a very deep forward group, no matter which way you look at it. And the best part about this is if there are injuries, whether it's center or on the wing, we have plenty of people who can jump in, and Liam O'Brien's not even listed here. He is definitely more of that grinder enforcer for the team. I would prefer him to be kind of our 13th forward, which means we'd have that extra guy to carry. Maybe he doesn't play every game, but comes in and out of the lineup, especially against maybe the tougher teams or teams that we recently had some scuffles with. Bring Liam O'Brien in there to kind of police the whole situation. Would definitely be more of a preferred role for him than 82 games. So what do you guys think of that bottom 6? Do you think this is another situation where we see maybe Bukestad at wing on that second line with Cooley and Gunther as that big vet presence, and then moving Krause back down with Michelli, and then you could even move around Kerfoot or McBain for that 3C? Or do you think the bottom 6 as Daily Faceoff has it projected with maybe Carcone instead of Josh Doan is probably more likely what we'll see?
Yeah, I think Nick Bukestad is probably going to move over to the wing. Obviously, he can play center, but I think the piece here too is Kevin Stenlund, right? He was brought in to play center. Jack McBain can move up to that 3C spot, and Stenlund can play 4. That kind of fits where he is offensively. He is a 4C. He's going to play on the PK. He's going to win faceoffs. I think he was 57% in Florida, if I remember correctly. So that's far and ahead of any Coyote last year. And I think Josh Doan is going to make this team. I mean, as much as Michael Carcone had 21 goals last year, it was a bit of a flash in the pan. I think his career high before that was maybe around 10 or so. And like you mentioned, Liam O'Brien is part of this team. So that is 2 extra forwards and 1 extra defenseman. And from what I remember, under the Bill Armstrong tenure, this has not been a team that's typically run the 23-man roster. It's been closer to 22. So I think they're going to have Josh Doan make this team, and they'll find something to do with Michael Carcone, whether it's you might have to go on waivers, you might have to go on a trade, but you know, long term, he's not as much as he had 21 goals last year. It's not a huge loss if you lose Michael Carcone.
Yeah, and I realized, guys, I kind of jumped the gun the last segment when we started talking about Doan and Carcone, but I did battle. Yeah, exactly right. And that's I meant to do that. So I kind of had that same battle, Corey. I was sitting there thinking like, all right, who's he gonna beat out? And the only person I kept circling back to was Carcone. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why is because Carcone kind of came in unceremoniously to us. And he did happen to be just like, he was an AHL All-Star and he was putting up insane numbers down there. And then he took advantage of an injury situation and, kind of pleasantly surprised us a la Gunther. Although Gunther had his name penciled into the lineup somewhere, right? Carcone was just like whoa, like how do you send this guy down? Kind of like a Connor Garland.
Michael Bunting.
Michael Bunting as well. Correct. We've had a few.
But Garland is even better example. Garland was out of nowhere producer for this team, and for sure got goals any way he possibly could. And you kind of saw that with Carcone's play. But go ahead, Kenny.
No, and I think that's probably a testament to Tucson as well. I mean, just how well they're developing the guys down there. So props to them. So I kind of had that battle as well. And I would be, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised. I'm actually rooting for Doan to beat out Carcone just because I feel like, I mean, how can you not, right? I mean, he looked like a natural up there. He's nothing against Carcone, but I think Carcone is kind of a one-trick pony. He does have more gumption to his game than other players in his position. But I think that Doan is that big body, is that workhorse, the guy that's going to drive to the net and score however he can, like his father did. And I think that's what this team needs. So, and then this is my last point to your point, Corey. I absolutely think that Stenlin is going to be a fixture at the center position, no matter what. He might actually be our best true center on the team for the role he plays. I'm not saying the most offensive, not saying the most upside, but he's going to do his job the best at the center position.
Shades of Boyd Gordon to his game, and if you're new fan to the team and franchise, try to find the clip of Boyd Gordon taking 2 heavy shots to the body to keep a Mike Smith shutout going in the 2020 or 2012 season, I believe it was, or I think that was the playoff run one. So I think that,
I think it was 2012, against Columbus. That game.
Yes, against Columbus. Holy cow, it's something to behold. But yeah, Stenlin kind of reminds me of Boyd Gordon in a lot of ways.
Yeah, legendary defensive center who just brings his work boots to the rink every night and is willing to sell out and put his body on the line to keep goals out of the net. Yeah, coach and goalie's favorite kind of forward, and Stenlin definitely has that. His coach in Florida, who won the Stanley Cup, gave him a big shout out as a difference maker on that team. I saw Kyle Okposo on Spit and Chicklets saying that Stenlin was really the glue for that infamous fourth line in Florida, where they had so much depth and so much toughness down there, and Okposo called him the glue. So I definitely think he's going to be center. I think the easiest guy to shift to wing is Bjugstad for sure. Yeah. On the Doan versus Carcone debate, I would say that Carcone's scored a bunch of goals, but it was really in 2 really hot spurts, where at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, he got red hot and scored buckets of goals, and he did very little in between. And I think that the reason why he was such an older rookie and the reason why he's just now breaking into the league at age 28 is consistency. And I think he said that himself, and his minor league coaches have said that too, that he's got the skill and ability to be an NHL player, but consistency has plagued him throughout his career. And that's really, for newer fans, that consistency is really the key magic ingredient that turns a very good minor league player into an everyday NHL player. It's consistency. That's what's really required at the highest level by coaching staffs. And that's eluded him thus far, even in his short NHL career. So unless we see huge strides in that, he's got not only Josh Doan nipping at his heels, but some of the best and brightest prospects in the system are wingers. So he's going to have to make really big strides in the consistency department if he wants to hang on to that NHL career and if he wants to hang on to it here in Utah, of all places. I'm reminded a little bit of old boxing terminology. When you had a hot boxing prospect who was a really top prospect, when he turned pro, you didn't want to put him in there with big cagey brawlers who are going to punch his face in right off the bat. So you put him up against guys he knew he could beat. They call them tomato cans. That was the nickname in boxing, tomato cans, right? And for Josh Doan to win a spot over Liam O'Brien, not the hardest beat to get a roster spot. And on a worse team, he'd probably have a bunch of tomato cans to face. But once you get a little higher up and you start facing tougher competition, you'll come up against a guy who's a level above that. He's not a contender, but he's a yardstick. He's a measuring stick. They call those guys a stick, right? And I think that's what Josh Doan is facing in Michael Carcone. Until you can beat Michael Carcone for an NHL job, you're not an NHL player. So I think that's a really great problem to have in camp, is that Josh Doan might have too tough of a time winning a roster spot. That's a great problem. That's a problem that every NHL team would like to have.
Yeah, and Carcone's on a very affordable contract, so he would probably be a guy that any team that's looking for some depth scoring, maybe a team like Detroit, or even like a contending team who faces some early injuries, may come knocking on the door if they needed to kind of supplement some of their scoring if they lose somebody. And that would be that opportunity to move Doan up. So this could be one of those situations where at the start of the year, Carcone's on the roster, but then as we move into the season, there may be opportunity for Carcone to be moved elsewhere, and Doan takes that spot.
Can I say one more thing about Carcone, since I was talking about boxing? Just real quick. this is something that I don't know how many Coyotes fans, let alone Utah fans, know about the guy. It's something that makes him a little bit of a sneaky favorite of mine. He hasn't shown it at the NHL level yet, but if you go to hockeyfights.com and you watch some of his fights in the minor leagues, this dude has got a sneaky right hand that absolutely buckles guys. They don't see it coming. They underestimate him. He's not very big. He sneaks in an early right hand, and he's been in a lot of two hit fights, I should say. Him hitting the other guy and the other guy hitting the deck. He's got a lightning right hand. And I don't think anybody in the NHL knows about it. So whenever he's in a scrum, I'm like, is this it? Is this where he's going to bust it out and put the league on notice? Because I don't think they know what he's got packed in that right hand. So I'm looking forward to the day when he finally busts that out at the NHL level and the whole league stands up and takes notice and says, where did that come from? Who is this guy? So it's in there. Yeah.
So what we're trying to say is, Carconi, if you're watching, we all believe you're going to make the team. You're going to be a first line winger. We're sorry about everything that we said.
Don't hurt us.
Don't hurt us, please.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start talking about the defense, where now, unlike the end of the season last year, it looks quite a bit different. So let me pull up again the daily face-off projections of what those lines may look like. Don't forget, we did acquire Michael Sergachev this offseason, John Moreno this offseason, and Ian Cole. So you generally carry 6 defensemen, maybe a 7th as that extra, just in case there's injuries or to kind of put people in and out of the lineup. But half of our lineup on defense in the blue line has changed. So right now, Daily Faceoffs has Sergachev with Jersey at the top line, which doesn't feel quite right to me. Juuso Välimäki with John Moreno on the second line, and Ian Cole and Michael Kesselring for that third pair. This feels a lot further off than what I would personally expect. I think their forwards were much closer to what we will probably see on game one. Obviously, it's going to depend a lot on chemistry and how things shake out. If, somebody like Välimäki looks really, really good with, let's say, Jersey at camp, maybe he sticks, or maybe someone like Ian Cole takes that second pair with Jersey, or maybe this will be something similar where it's Jersey and Sergachev at the top pair. But I have a feeling the way we've seen pairs being built before, that Tournier likes to kind of have that better mix of the different styles of defensemen. And really what you're looking at is Sergachev, Jersey being kind of the high-flying offensive defenseman. Välimäki is kind of more of that two-way guy. Moreno and Ian Cole are definitely more of your typical shutdown defensive defenseman. And Kesselring, still kind of evolving as a player. He definitely has a lot of offensive upside. We see him pinching a lot, which means he's going to kind of go up the ice and find those open lanes to make an offensive play at the risk of having to potentially skate very hard to get back if there is a turnover. But he's been pretty smart with those pinches. I was always impressed with his game. I still think it's not determined if he's going to be a regular NHL player down the road. Does seem like we are practically giving him a spot. I wouldn't mind a little bit more depth to where he's got some tomato cans ahead of him. But I think this is going to be the big question mark as we get closer to game one. So thoughts on that kind of construction of those defensive pairs? What are your takes on it, guys?
Yeah, I feel this is more ranked like a depth chart than it is what the actual lines will be. I think we'll see Sergachev and John Moreno put the two newbies together, and just hope that works out well, and then hope there's maybe some pre-existing chemistry. I think Ian Cole's on the second pair rather than Välimäki. I like Välimäki a lot, but he did have a down year last year from his first year in Arizona. So I think you'll see Sergachev with Moreno. I think you'll see Ian Cole with Sean Jersey, and that's a good mix there. One's more defensive-minded, and one is definitely more offensive-minded. And then that bottom pair would be Välimäki and Kesselring. And I liked Kesselring toward the end of last season as well. Really took a step in that second half of the season. He was basically a throw-in in that trade. That was the Nick Bjugstad to Edmonton before Bjugstad came back to this team.
Yeah.
But I think really the question mark with this blue line is there's just not a lot of depth. I believe last year they had 12 or 13 defensemen who played. Now, that was a little bit inflated when guys like Matt Dumba got moved out of the deadline and some other guys had to step into the lineup. But if you look at viable options who could play defense this year, if any of these guys miss time, it's Kolechonik, he's good, but he's probably not beyond a bottom pair guy, and his NHL experience is very limited. There's Max Zuber, who, same kind of thing. He made his NHL debut last year, only played one game. Victor Soderstrom, I don't think he's even going to be signed. And then the other one is Kevin Connaughton, who has not played an NHL game since the 21-22 season. And that's when he was with Arizona. He played 50 games that year. And then, he hasn't played, right? And let's admit what he is. He's a depth defenseman at this point. He kind of always was.
He's a sticky boy. I remember that.
Yeah, that was the Tocchet era.
Yeah.
Tocchet famously described any player lacking skill as being sticky and playing a sticky game, and his underskilled roster needed to play sticky. It was his favorite catchphrase there for a while.
We got some good phrases out of that regime. The optionality, premier player or premium player, sorry. And then sticky. It was just like, oh boy, what have we gotten ourselves into? I think Corey hit it out of the park. Those are my defensive pairings as well. I think what we see on Daily Faceoff is, and no disrespect to them, but those look like video game lineups where you just kind of stack your highest skilled players on the first line and then just kind of go down from there. Kesselring is an interesting project. I do think that he does have the ability to become an offensive defenseman in this league. And I mean, he's a right-hand shot, right? So that's always a plus. But I tend to agree. Like, I don't know if this was a team that I felt like, hey, we're pushing the chips in and we're going for the playoff spot. I don't think he is someone that starts on your lineup. I think he would be somebody that would be an injury fill-in and a happy surprise if he does, continue to push the issue for you. But this is a development year. I think we talked about that last episode. I'm happy with him being down there. I actually wouldn't mind to see him stick with Ian Cole, but I do agree Valimaki and he would probably be the third line pairing.
Yeah, so I think you nailed it there, Kenny. And Corey, you used a word earlier, hope, and I think that this blue line comes unraveled pretty quick if it doesn't live up to the hope. And that's why I'd like to see another player added. You said, let's put Sergachev and Marino together, the two new guys, because they seem like such a great fit on paper. And they're probably the two best defensemen on the team, I would say. You could make a case for Marino versus Durzi. They're kind of the flip side of the same coin there, honestly. One being the more defensive version, the other being the more offensive version, but about similar caliber players. Neither of which is ideal for a first pairing and wouldn't be on a contending team. But on a team trying to take the next step, both are adequate as the second best player on a top pair. But I do think Marino is a really good fit with Sergachev. And I think that Sean Durzi at this stage in his career, and maybe always, is going to require a bit of a babysitter if you want to get the most out of Sean Durzi. And I think that Ian Cole is the best fit for that. I see a lot of talk about him being a depth defenseman or a defenseman that may play on the third pair. I think he's getting a little underrated as people evaluate this roster. He was a top 4 defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks last season. He played nearly 19 minutes a game. He was definitely a leader on that team in terms of their blue line. And this is a team that does not have the amount of blue line talent and depth that team did. So I expect him fully to be a top 4 defenseman once again for us. And I think he's the ideal fit for Sean Durzi, because you want Durzi to be able to run free and play his game, almost like we talked about with Keller and Schmaltz, who are ultra skilled, but maybe not all that safe. And they need a security blanket to make sure that things don't get too out of hand and we don't end up with big rushes again. So when Durzi's pinching, which we want him doing often because he's good at it, we need somebody to stay home and take care of things if the puck should get out of the zone. And I think Ian Cole's a good fit for that. But where I think this comes unraveled is that lack of depth, because I don't see Valimaki as a good fit for that. I don't see Kesselring playing up. So if the mix in the top 4 isn't perfect, or if somebody gets hurt or there's some unexpected chemistry issues, I don't know what it looks like. And it probably not pretty, right? Like we've really upgraded the very top of the blue line by adding Sergachev, who's like a phenomenal addition. But the mix to me feels a little bit tenuous. It feels a little bit house of cards in terms of the composition of the blue line. Everything's got to go right. There's too much hope for my taste and not enough depth. So I'd really like to see one more addition on that blue line, which I think would solidify things and allow us to handle adversity or speed bumps or unexpected things like injuries a little bit better. I'm a little worried if we have two guys injured that we're not going to win a lot of games if that blue line gets the injury bug.
Yeah, and I think, we do have a little bit of depth. Victor Soderstrom, who will most likely be playing in Tucson. Or there's that potential that we need to give the kid an opportunity, and that may mean he is traded for maybe a veteran who's a little overpaid and not needed on a team, and they would like to have that extra depth and are able to afford to give Soderstrom kind of that taste in the big league that we really can't. That is definitely going to be a piece that will be coming out next week. We're going to have a couple different Soderstrom trade ideas, so keep your eyes out on the Clean Hits Substack for that. Maybe he'll even get like bundled with Carcone. There's a couple pieces there, but I would have to agree the depth is where I get concerned too. Now we do have a question in the chat from Utah Yeti. Kesselring looked great playing for Team USA. What is his projection for this team? Eventual top 4, top 6? I think we kind of discussed this already. I definitely can see a world where he is kind of a top 4-ish defenseman on a team, maybe not our team, because we do have Dursey kind of long-term. We have Moreno now long-term. Simashev should be making the lineup potentially next season. Sergachev is going to be here for a very long time. I think it's going to be hard for him to move up. I do think we have a good mix of offensive defensemen already. So I think Kesselring's going to need to evolve a little bit as a player in order to become a guy who's more considered a top 4 defenseman. I would love it if he becomes a very solid bottom pairing guy who can bring a little bit of skill along with size, because that's one thing I felt like I didn't see much of, was him throwing his body around a little bit.
He got a little bit. Yeah, sorry, Dan. Sorry,
yeah,
totally interrupted there. He got a little better with that, and there was this really great Bill Armstrong behind the scenes clip where he sat Kesselring down, and you could see him explaining to him that if he wants to make it in this league, he's going to have to learn to use that 6'4" frame a little bit more. I saw Kesselring do that a little bit more last season. He took probably a lot of unnecessary penalties in that effort, but I think the team was willing to let that slide so he could find the correct balance. I think he's trying to add that to his bag because he's not the youngest prospect, right? He's about to be 25. He's almost the same age as Dursey and Marino and these much more established players. And he's been a pro for several years, and he still only has 74 NHL games. And it's really, he's kind of a late bloomer. He was a 6th round pick. We're not really sure what he is. And he never even really found a defined identity in the minor leagues, right? Like one year, a couple of years ago, he had 13 goals for Bakersfield, which is incredible given that in college, he scored 5 goals and 2 goals. I mean, he wasn't even a goal scorer in the USHL. At no time in his career has he been a goal scorer. And then he just exploded for 13 goals in the AHL. And that was the season in which we acquired him in the Nick Bukestad trade, probably because our minor pro scouts were saying there might be something here. He's a 6'4" kid with 13 goals and only 49 games for the Bakersfield Condors. We might have something here. We haven't really seen that so much on the NHL roster. It's just kind of like he has these tools. He's shown flashes, to the commenter's point, Utah Yeti, he looked really good for Team USA even, right? So what is Kesselring? I think we're going to find out this season because he's kind of running out of time to be a project. It's time to figure out what we've got, and I think we're going to find out this year. And to your point, Brad, it would be awesome if he turned out to be a very solid, everyday NHL player who can help your team from the bottom pair. That, to me, is my hope, more so than a top 4 guy.
Yeah, I think he could be a top 6 guy at 82 game season. I think top 4, that's only short-term injury relief. And I think for this team, he's just not going to have a future beyond 1 or 2 years from now, right? Because that right side is going to be locked in with Maverick Lamoureux and Sean Dursey. So at most, he'd just be a bottom 6 guy on the right side.
Now, one other depth prospect we didn't really talk about is Kolyachonok, who is a prospect I've been very excited about for a while now. And there's a little bit of shades of Yannick of just not quite getting the opportunity on the team. Not necessarily saying that on the temper side of things. He's much more level-headed than Yannick was. But he is still got some snarl to his game. He really was impressive to me in those last 5 games he played for the team last year. He had a goal and 3 assists in those games, +5 for his plus minus. I felt like he was starting to look like a difference maker and looking like he was comfortable on the team. I really, really hope he gets some looks this year. He's a guy who I think has a little bit more of an opportunity to be that really good third pairing type of player and evolve into a certain role that he can live up to and exceed at playing, where again, Kesselring has so many different tools that I feel like he's not able to have that definitive role as easily as someone like Kolyachonok would. And I think that is probably what may end up hurting Kesselring's kind of long-term outlook for this team. Maybe he finds that role on a different team, but Kolyachonok is really kind of my dark horse defenseman to potentially make the team out of camp, and maybe Kesselring is back in the AHL.
Yeah, I think Kolyachonok's really been knocking on the door for the last couple of seasons here, and I think he would have been a regular, especially in the second half of last season. But he had the 2 different stints last year. In the first one, he was, what did he last? I think a period before he got hurt, and then he was out with a pretty devastating injury. So had that not happened, I think he would have had a pretty good number of games played by the end of the year. Especially you looked at some of the other names that were rolling out, like Travis Dermott and Josh Brown and Cam Crotty. So had Kolyachonok been available, I think he would have been playing. And the other thing that he brings is he can play both the left and the right side. And we know that Andre Tournier is a big fan of that. He has his left shot defenseman play the left side. He has his right shot defenseman play the right side. Kolyachonok, I believe, is a left shot, but he can play both sides. Yeah, and not a lot of defensemen can do that effectively.
Yeah, Russians get a little bit more experience with that, it seems. They seem to move around side to side a little bit more over there. So he has that going for him. But he's been in North America a really long time. He played in the Ontario Hockey League. I was a big fan of his in his draft year. He was playing for this horrifically bad Flint Firebirds team and was a real standout despite some difficult circumstances there. He ended up going in the second round. And I thought that he had the potential to be a little bit of a steal because his team was so bad and he was playing huge minutes as just an import rookie there and had a big role. He's had some minor league success. The statistics haven't really been there. They may not be there for him, but he does play with an edge, a surprising edge, I would say. He's pretty average size, but he's not afraid to use what he's got. And he plays a really solid, unspectacular kind of game that lends itself to being potentially a really good depth player at the NHL level at some point in his career. And he's definitely one I'm keeping an eye out on, Brad, as well, just like you for this season, hoping that he might be able to make an impression at some point this year.
Yep. Excellent. Well, the other kind of roster construction that we'll probably hint on, I know we're kind of getting close to an hour, so we'll start commenting on the special teams. So that will be our power play and penalty kill. Again, these are going to be daily face-offs, just kind of projections. I would say power plays and penalty kills can change quite a bit. Lots of shuffling, obviously, with injuries, people getting hot and not, people moving up and down, especially a team like ours. But we will have some mainstays on the top unit, and that will definitely be Keller. I don't think is going anywhere. Nick Schmaltz not going anywhere. Daily Faceoff has Logan Cooley as the top power play center. There were times last season, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was starting to play on that top power play unit. But this one could be another one that Hayton fits in because he is going to potentially be a little bit better at the dots and definitely is a stronger net front presence. Dylan Gunther and then Sean Jersey. I think this unit looks pretty close to what we'll be seeing. Maybe with Hayton instead of Cooley, maybe they'll kind of flip-flop them around a little bit there. And then the other big piece here is Sergachev taking over Jersey's spot and as kind of the quarterback of that top power play unit. So what are you guys' thoughts there? Jersey versus Sergachev, Hayton versus Cooley. What do you guys think?
I think this is pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if it is the final configuration. I could see Hayton being that center just to make sure you win the draw and can actually begin the power play. There were so many power plays, especially in like the Rick Tocchet area where they would waste the first 30, 45 seconds just because they lost the draw and couldn't get in the zone.
Don't bring it that. Don't want
to go down that road again. I would be curious if they do try Sergachev on the first power play unit. I mean, he is the big piece of the summer just to see. I mean, obviously that's where Sean Jersey is really going to cash in, and he is a really strong player in power play, but I would be curious to see that. I do believe they are right here that, I mean, some teams still use 2 defensemen, 3 forwards on the power play, but I think Andre Tourné likes this system, 4 forwards, 1D, and I think that's the system that they're going to keep going with.
So really quickly, too, last year, the team ranked 15th in goals for per game with an average of 3.12. They also ranked 15th in the power play, converting at 22%. All this data is coming from shotprops.com. Make sure you bookmark that website. It's a fantastic resource. He is updating that data every couple games, so you can kind of see the way things are moving in real time. This is definitely a very valuable tool for the gambling aspect of things because he does log shots on goal data and shots against too. So that's shotprops with a Z.com. But kind of right in the middle of the road for both goals for and power play. I think with the upgrades at defense and these forwards getting a little bit older, I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting closer to the top 12 here, especially with the emergence of Gunther and if Logan Cooley takes another step up. And it sounds like he has been looking phenomenal out in Pittsburgh when at kind of the GOAT tournament he was playing at and some of the kind of dev camps or trainings sessions that he's been working out at.
Yeah, I think that the sky's the limit for Cooley on that power play. It's really exciting to see what's going to happen there. When I looked at that daily face-off first power play unit, however, with Cooley, Schmaltz, Keller. Jersey and who was the other
Gunther.
forward? Gunther. Yeah,
lots of not much meat, not much butt, a lot of twigs.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. That's where I was going with that. And Kraus didn't put up a lot of points on the power play last year.
No.
I'd like to see him step it up because we need him to be successful in that role. That's the one area where I think maybe Barrett Hayton might have an advantage over Logan Cooley there, is we need somebody in the low slot in front of the net, mixing it up and wreaking havoc in front of the goalie. And it's not going to be Logan Cooley. It's not going to be Nick Schmaltz. It's not going to be Dylan Gunther. So I think that first power play unit is overwhelming on skill and represents probably the best skill we have on the team. But I don't know if that translates in real life. I think Nick Bjugstad's had some success in that role in the past. You didn't get much power play time last year. I'd be curious if maybe that's something they revisit, getting him on the power play so that we have somebody taking away the goalie's eyes and picking up the garbage goals around the net on the PP, which is a vital role and one that I don't really see represented in the daily face-off configuration.
Yeah, and one comment on that power play projection before we move over to the penalty kill. What about moving Nick Schmaltz to the second unit, keeping Cooley at the top with Hayton there? So Hayton and Cooley can kind of pivot from playing the center role there, depending on how they want to line up, or maybe Cooley kind of plays against the wall and helps kind of keep the playmaking going too. So that would kind of allow them to have a little bit different of a mix of the types of players there. I don't know how happy Schmaltz would be on the second unit, but it would also make that second unit a hell of a lot more dangerous, because right now the projections are Lawson Krause at left wing, Hayton at center, Josh Doan at right wing / I guess Carcone here, Matthias Michelli, and Sergachev. So
little thin.
That's a mess. There too. Yeah, that's not real.
Yeah,
you're not gonna see anything like that. Yeah,
you're almost, if that's the second unit, you really need to cash in on the first. And I mean, this is a really good group of players, but kind of grouped together like this, it's it's not a very dangerous power play.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder if now all of a sudden you're putting Hayton at the top, moving Schmaltz here, and then I mean Schmaltz can play center. He has in the past. He's not the best, but if he's going to be in the offensive zone a lot, I don't know.
There's a lot of success away from Keller.
I do have to agree with that too. But yeah, maybe even Sergachev being on the top power play unit allows them to have a little bit more muscle up there. It's interesting. There's a lot of skill on this team, and there's only so many spots go around.
And Bukestad can win a face-off.
Yes,
he's a right shot. So I wouldn't mind seeing him maybe on the second power play here, so that Schmaltz doesn't have to take those face-offs.
That would make sense.
That wouldn't bother me at all. And then Hayton being a little bit stronger on face-offs on that first power play unit, I think lends itself to that. I do like Michelli on here. I like the idea of Michelli distributing the puck, but that should ideally be along the half wall and not on the blue line there. I think he's probably not a fit to run the point, especially since, we've got Sergachev there who's going to be distributing. So, this is probably not what we're going to see, but I think there's a lot of very interesting and different options here. For the first time in a long time, we're going to be able to put together a second power play unit that isn't laughable and is actually respectable. So that's something that we can really look forward to. That may be one of the biggest night and day differences on this roster versus any other roster we've had in a very long time, is that like our second power play units can actually look pretty good.
Yeah.
Which we've not enjoyed in the past.
The other thing with that configuration is it had Josh Doan on it. So in the event he doesn't make the team, that second unit gets even uglier. Like if you're slotting in Kerfoot or the options get pretty limited, right? Very, Coyotes 10 years ago when you got your third liners playing on the power play.
Yeah, Bukestad makes a lot of sense potentially there over Josh Doan, I think too, though. All right, real quickly, the penalty kill, we should mention it. It's not exactly the most exciting unit to talk about here. Last season, we had the 25th ranked penalty kill, so not great. Only 7 teams were worse than us, and that was a 76% rate. We also allowed the 8th most goals against, averaging 3.34. So if you do the math here, we had the higher ranked goals against than goals for. So that obviously does not lead to success. And that is why this team was the 6th worst at the end of the year. Another stat that I found interesting that I pulled from shotprops.com was we allowed the 5th most penalty opportunity or power play opportunities to opponents, averaging 3.24 a game. So we definitely need to get a little bit more discipline there, because if you don't have a good penalty kill and you're taking a lot of penalties, it stings. It stings a lot. And finally, we allowed the 27th most shots against. I'm sorry, the 9th most shots against, averaging 31.7 per game. So another area that we really need to start limiting those chances, not allowing opponents to just be able to pepper our goaltenders. This has been something that has kind of plagued the team for years, the exorbitant amount of shots against. John Moreno will definitely help with that, though. That is something that we can look forward to. But yes, looking at this penalty kill, this top unit, that is our projection. They got Nick Bukestad, Alex Kerfoot, Sergachev, and Sean Durzi. Sitting on that.
I will bet you $10,000 that Sean Dursey will not be on the first penalty.
Yeah. Real quickly, I'm going to pull up what Daily Faceoff has for the second unit, which is Kevin Stenlund, who probably is going to be on the top unit. Lawson Krause, Ian Cole, again, another guy who should help with that shots against. He is willing to.
Top unit.
Yep. And John Moreno here. Yeah. So very interesting. Yeah. I would say Cole and this actually looks like the top unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the actual top unit, Bukestad and Kerfoot maybe, and McBain would make a lot of sense here too. Sergachev should be able to play a little bit on the penalty kill, but he's definitely not the one that you want to send out right away.
Yeah, I think you take out Kerfoot, you put in Stenlund. Stenlund last year with Florida, the year before their PK was 23rd. He shows up for a year and he drags their PK up to 6th. That's a huge improvement. He was second in ice time for all forwards across the whole NHL, penalty kill ice time. First on the Panthers. Ian Cole as well led Vancouver in shot blocks. I think, add those to that first configuration. Sean Dursey's obviously not going to be on the PK. I don't know where that came from. So take him out. And then, Kerfoot, Bukestad, they can both play center, both play wing. It's nice to have that optionality for who can take the face off. But you put, Stenlund in there. He's going to be I would assume he would take the face off, but it's nice to have those other two. One of those other two as an option just in case somebody gets kicked out of the draw as well.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind Hayden getting a little bit more penalty kill time too.
Yeah. Kerfoot was our number one penalty killing forward last season.
Mm-hmm.
He got the most ice time on the PK, so I think Kerfoot is a natural fit for Stenlund on that first unit. Of course, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. That second penalty kill gets a little thin, especially on the blue line if we've got both Marino and Cole on the top unit. So maybe wise to spread that around a bit because I'm not sure who the third option is there. Maybe it is Sergachev just because he's so good at everything. Or maybe it's, I don't know if you really want Valimaki there. You probably don't, or Kesselring. So probably Sergachev by default. So interesting options there. And another reason I think why adding another defenseman might not be a bad idea. If they do add another defenseman, I definitely want it to be someone who can help the PK. Because it's pretty thin on the PK there.
And last year's numbers were not great, especially on the penalty kill. So that's definitely an area that we can improve on. Well, I think that kind of covers the entire roster. Are there any other comments that you guys would like to bring up? Corey, Trent?
No, I just think we got to roll with that song one more time.
We are definitely going to be closing out with the new intro/outro. Otherwise we'll wrap it up. Again, we are the Clean Hits crew. This is the Clean Hits podcast. You can find all of our written content and articles on cleanhits.substack.com. Make sure you're subscribing there. We're going to have great content coming out throughout the rest of the summer. And then we got some cool plans for in-season content. We're going to have some gambling pieces, player profiles, lots of content to be covering the team, so you can really kind of geek out with us. And then you can find us on X at Clean Hits Hockey. My name is Brad. This is Corey and Trent. Without further ado, have a fantastic weekend, everybody. And let's close out that show the same way we started. All right. Adios.
We're running the game now. Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.